Kim, it's over to you.
Thanks, Nicole. So I'll just wait for the slides to be shared. But it was so wonderful to hear about all your amazing work in the community. It's so inspiring. And yeah, just very grateful you're all here. Okay, so we'll start with a land acknowledgement. The City of Toronto acknowledges that we are on the traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. The city also acknowledges that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaties signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. And we'll move on to the African ancestral acknowledgement. Though I am not a person of African descent, I am committed to continually acting in support of and in solidarity with Black communities seeking freedom and reparative justice in light of the history and ongoing legacy of slavery that continues to impact Black communities in Canada. As part of this commitment, I would also like to acknowledge that not all people came to these lands as migrants and settlers. Specifically, I wish to acknowledge that those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly those brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. In support of the City of Toronto's ongoing efforts to confront anti-Black racism, I pay tribute to those ancestors of African origin and descent.
So now it's over to Andrew.
Great, thank you, Kim and Stephanie. And just want to agree with what Kim was saying there. Thank you for joining us. Really nice to meet you. Great to hear about the work that you're doing in your communities. Great to hear that some of you are part of the Neighborhood Climate Action Champions program. That's really cool. Really pleased that you're so engaged and that you're interested in taking up this opportunity to host some group discussions in your community. So hopefully this will be very informative for you and a useful way to get this process started. I'll just take you through the outline here very quickly, just so you have a sense of what we're going to be talking about. I'll provide a brief background on TransformTO, just sort of where we've come from, what the timelines are, and we'll talk a little bit about the path to net zero as well, like where we're at currently and where we need to get to. We'll talk a bit about the development of the action plan, which is what this consultation process is all about. And then we'll get into the group discussion piece, which is what this info session is all about. And we'll have some time for Q&A at the end that Nicole and Stephanie will facilitate. So without further ado, a bit of background on the TransformTO net zero strategy. TransformTO is our climate strategy, as you probably know, originally approved by City Council in 2017, but after Council declared a climate emergency I think it was in 2019, late 2019, staff were directed to come up with, update the strategy with a pathway to net zero emissions. So the old strategy was an 80% reduction in emissions by 2050. And so the new strategy has a long-term goal of net zero emissions by 2040. So 10 years sooner with a stricter emissions target. It was adopted by City Council in December 2021. There's an interim target of 65% reduction in emissions by 2030. And so that's important for us because that's sort of what this next action plan will take us to. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But before I do, just quickly, like what are net zero emissions, just in case you're not familiar with the concept. It's basically where we've done our best to stop emitting GHGs, get them as close to zero as possible, and then any remaining emissions, which typically are coming out of landfills or industrial processes that can't be converted, or very unique buildings that can't be converted, those are offset by carbon removals or carbon credits. So it's getting emissions down as close to zero as possible and then offsetting the balance. The action plan for net zero, which is what we're consulting on in this public consultation process, is part of the net zero strategy, right? So the strategy is long-term, takes us to 2040. Action plans are shorter term in 5-year increments. What are we doing? What are the actions we're taking in these 5-year blocks to help get us on that trajectory to net zero? So the first action plan that was approved by council back in 21 took us to this year, or well, up to next year, actually, sorry, up to 2025. And it included a set of 30 key actions in 7 sectors. So pretty detailed plan. We're now talking about the next action plan, 2026 to 2030. And it's going to be based on technical modeling that we're doing with some consultants. So like a technical process of how to get to net zero, but also a lot of internal and external consultation with stakeholders and with the public. Here's a timeline of the process. So the internal piece I was just speaking of is at the top. So that is technical modeling and speaking with other divisions and engaging with other divisions and agencies and developing the plan. And the bottom is our external engagement. And so that includes our climate advisory group, which some of you may be familiar with, and that's a group of 25 external stakeholders who advise us on the implementation of TransformTO, and that's an ongoing process year-round. They meet quarterly, and they have working groups, so they're constantly providing advice to us. And then this public consultation program that we just launched last week, which is meant to go until the end of January. So this is an opportunity for us to talk to people all across the city, neighborhoods across the city, get survey responses from people across the city. So this is our public process for engagement. So where are we at now on the path to net zero? There's a few ways that we can sort of talk about this. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail here. Liz, you mentioned you were reading the report on the left, I think, so that's great. That is our most recent progress and accountability report. It was released in March and taken to committee and council at that time, basically telling us, you know, where we're at in terms of like implementation of key actions. So if you have some time, I encourage you to take a look at it. It's on, the link is down below there. It's on the TransformTO website. And then so that gives us an update on actions, but we also have emissions inventories that we complete on an annual basis. The most recent one is from 2021, and the reason for that is it takes about 2 years to create the emissions inventories. The 2022 inventory will be out soon, pretty soon. I'm not sure exactly when, possibly later this month or December, probably at the latest in January. I'm not sure exactly where it's at. And the emissions inventories sort of tell us where we're at, you know, against our targets. So we have a 2025 interim target, 2030 interim target, and of course the 2040 target for net zero. So finally, the one on the right is not really something we need to talk about today, but that's our consumption-based emissions inventory. And so consumption-based emissions are things that go into like construction or supply chains. We're not talking about that today, but it's just so you know that we do have that inventory as well. So in the 2021, our most recent sector-based emissions inventory, we know that from ongoing emissions inventories, we have 3 key sources and sectors for emissions. The largest one is buildings, which is 56% of our community-wide emissions. Then transportation, which is currently 35%, and waste, which is 9%. So buildings, typically it's natural gas from single-family homes, but also multi-unit residential buildings and commercial buildings and industrial buildings. Transportation, most of the emissions is gasoline and diesel from personal vehicles and commercial vehicles. Waste is almost entirely methane from landfill. Here's where we are on the path to net zero. So I'm sorry if this is a bit busy, this graph, but hopefully it displays where we're at vis-a-vis the targets that we've set in the strategy. So our most recent emissions inventory, we're at 14.5 megatons. So to get down to net zero, we're going to need to get down very low. It might end up being something like 1 megaton, possibly, depending on, you know, emissions that we're not able to completely remove. We won't probably know that quite yet, but certainly we need to go quite low to get to net zero. In 2021, we saw a 4% increase over 2020. And you probably know the reason for that, because the 2020 inventory was a COVID year with a lot of lockdowns, people not leaving their homes, frankly, and fewer cars on the road. So it was not surprising that emissions were quite low. You can see it on the graph there. And so in 2021, we went back up, a 4% increase. I would anticipate it might be something similar when the new one comes out. Probably might be another increase, but certainly the point of this graph is to show that we need to get back on that trajectory to reach our 2025 target, the 2030 target of a 65% reduction that I mentioned, and the 2040 target of net zero. So the whole point of this is, again, to like engage people on actions so we can get on that trajectory to net zero. I mentioned this already, I think, in the last slide, but again, the key drivers: natural gas, gasoline, and methane increased from 2020, hopefully, not increasing as much again this year, but again, really important for us to tackle these key sources of emissions. So the public consultation plan that we just launched last week, I'll tell you a little bit about that. It also includes some information on weather impacts, right? Which is sort of the other side of climate. So if we think of climate as how people are experiencing it, which is sort of like the resilience or adaptation side of climate, extreme weather, heat, flooding, rain, those types of things. And then the mitigation side is how we reduce emissions. So we are asking people about this because we know it's important to people. If you probably all saw in June and July, the DVP flooded, I think it was 3 times this summer, right, from extreme rain events. We know that people who don't have air conditioning would really feel the impacts of heat waves, which are increasing. So this is important for people, and we do want to hear from people on how they're experiencing weather, what they're doing about it, and what help they could use. So that is part of the discussion guide that we'll talk about in a bit. Again, some of the key indicators we look at: number of days per year with temperatures above 30, which is projected to increase. It was 8 days back in the 1950s. It's 18 now, and if the trends continue, it could increase to 29 or even 54 days by the 2060s. So you can imagine the significant impacts this has on people who maybe live in dwellings where it's difficult to manage the heat. Some of you might experience it yourselves. I know I have in the past, and it's not easy for people, and it can be a significant public health concern. So that's just one example of a number of climate impacts that people might be experiencing. So the other side of the consultation is what I was talking about with the emissions inventory, which is how we get our emissions down locally. And we talk about in our materials the 3 most important things that people can do to reduce emissions. So if buildings are our biggest source at 56%, we know that the single biggest source of that 50% is single family homes. And for residents, these are the things that they would have some control over if they own a home, of course, right? So this would be getting off of natural gas in your home if you own your home and you have control of that decision making. So that's a really significant action that we want more people to take. Transportation is the second largest one, and again, most of those emissions coming from personal vehicles. I think of the transportation sector, I think about 70% of the emissions come from personal vehicles. So these are combustion engine vehicles, gasoline and diesel. So the best way to reduce that, it's up on the slide, of course, is to leave your car at home and take transit or walk or bike, or to swap your car out for an electric vehicle. So we're really trying to encourage more people to take those actions, and we want to learn more from them on why they may or may not be doing that. And then finally, of course, there's a whole bunch of other things that people can do. Those are the 2 most significant. The other thing we're really focusing on this consultation is something we'll talk about today, is talking about this, right? Talking to your neighbors, talking to your community, talking to people at work, your boss, your landlord, because you might not control some of these decisions. If you don't own your own home, you can't, replace the furnace. But maybe you could speak to your landlord or your building manager. What are they doing about this, right? If you want to be part of the solution. Talk to other people in your community. What are they facing? So that's the whole point of this group discussion guide, and it's a really important part of the consultation. This is an infographic that Nicole and Stephanie have worked with a local design firm on, consulting firm, and it's meant to show how individual transportation mode choice influence emissions in this fictional neighborhood that they've created with a population of about 10,000 that we're calling Anywhereville. So you can watch, we'll show the video in a sec, and you can see how the emissions cloud gets smaller when people choose to walk up to 30 minutes and take their bike just once a week instead of driving every day. We know that there's a lot of emissions from vehicles. Obviously, congestion is a big problem in the city. So we're hoping that this type of thing is interesting to people, right? As a demonstration effect of how just doing one thing for one person can have a ripple effect when more people do this, take the same action, obviously. So this is Anywhereville. And once we hit the animation, you'll see the red dots represent cars and people driving, every day. The green dots are, again, people walking or taking their bike, and you can see the impact that this has on emissions, right, through the sort of the clouds in the bottom of the graph. So more cars means more greenhouse gas emissions, more walking and cycling. When you spread it across a number of people in the community, you can see the impact it has on emissions and on air quality, on congestion as well, which is not shown in here, of course, but fewer cars on the road is good for everyone. So this is something that we'll have up on our website, and Nicole, people can use this also in their discussions, right, if they want, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, no problem. We're going to have this up on the website, and you can just open your screen. The idea is to show for this sort of fake neighborhood, if everybody does it, how it can have a huge impact. So yeah.
Great, thanks. So a couple more things before I pass it over. All of the materials are found on the website, and that's toronto.ca/net zero action plan. And so this is just a screen cap of what it looks like. You click on there, you'll find, actually, sorry, if you go to the next slide, I can talk a bit more about the details. So there's 4 ways for residents to get involved. There's an online survey, which you can find on the website. We're having 2 webinars, one next week and one the following week, where we'll be delivering a similar presentation, but we'll have some discussion with residents if they're interested in learning more. The group discussions, which we're here to talk about today, obviously, and we're doing some pop-up events through our Live Green team at the City of Toronto with Kim and I, and with third-party throughout the month of November with residents, and that schedule for that is on the website, and it'll be updated as we add more events. We'll probably take those right into January, since we have extended the consultation period into the end of January. We got some feedback from some groups saying like they didn't feel like it was enough time to organize things in 1 month in November. So we've taken that feedback and we've added December. Obviously, people probably won't be doing too much for the holiday period, but early December, the entire month of January is open to host discussions. So that is the nuts and bolts on the website for the consultation. On the website, you'll find the group discussion guide. This is what it looks like. Again, it has a focus on both adaptation and mitigation. So that's the weather and reducing your emissions, depending on who you're speaking with and how how much they know about climate. What actions people are taking, what barriers they're facing, and what supports they need. This is really what we're focusing on in this consultation, because getting back to those emissions, we really need people to start taking those actions, getting off of natural gas and getting off of gasoline. So with that, I think I'm going to hand it over to Nicole and Stephanie, who are going to talk a little bit more about the discussion guide and some tips for hosting discussions in your neighborhood.
Thanks. Thank you, Andrew. So hi, everyone. Again, my name is Stephanie, and I work with the third-party public team. We really appreciate you all being interested in hosting your own group discussions and being willing and being here. Bringing these climate-related discussions to your groups, we know is really important, whether it's your friends, your family, the nonprofit organizations you work with, whoever you're speaking to. We know that the work you're doing is important, and that's why we're here as well, as to help you have those conversations. So today I'm just going to walk you through the discussion guide, which can be found on the website, as Andrew mentioned before. and some tips on how to host your own group discussion. So on the screen right now, you can see the group discussion guide. There's screen captures of what it looks like. It's 4 pages long. The first page is some information about it, and then you have 3 pages of discussion questions. So some tips on hosting your own group discussion. You're going to set a time and place for connecting with your friends, your families, your neighbors, whoever it is, whatever makes sense to you. It's really up to you. You're going to use the info sheet to share more information about the public consultation. So here on the right is a screen capture of what the first page of the info sheet looks like. You can also find this on the website, as Andrew mentioned, and this info sheet you can use the info sheet to go over it with your participants to get them more background content to then answer the following questions. And as you're facilitating, you're going to encourage everyone to participate and share their experiences and perspectives. Some people might be shy to like raise their hand or contribute to the conversation. So it's up to you as a facilitation host to, gently call them out and see if they agree with what's being said or if they disagree, and to just feel free to share whatever they would like to share. You're going to make sure that you take notes with your group discussion. You can take notes on the discussion guide itself. There's some space for you to do that, or you could take notes directly on the survey form, the online survey form. Once you've completed your conversation, make sure you review those notes with everyone before you wrap up so that the key points that were shared are captured accurately. If people disagree, that's okay. Your notes can reflect where people agreed on things and where people didn't agree on things. And then you're going to upload those notes to the survey website by scanning the QR code or going to the website. We'll go over this in detail shortly. And just to recap the resources that you have available as you're hosting your group discussion is you have the website itself, you have the info sheet and the group discussion guide. So these 2 documents together really includes all of the content you need to know. You're going to have this online orientation session, which is being recorded, as we mentioned, and it's going to be posted on the website. So if you wanted to, you could even share the recording with your group and then start the discussion, because Andrew went over all of the content. And then if you need to reach out to the ENC team for any questions, you can email them at transform@toronto.ca. So as Andrew mentioned, the main focus of the consultation is on the weather and the emissions. So there are 2 sets of questions. The hotter, wetter, wilder weather, which refers to weather, or you might see climate adaptation. And then the second one is reducing your greenhouse gas emissions, which you can see referred to as climate mitigation. So under each of these 2 sections, you're going to have questions about what actions people are taking, what barriers they're facing, and what supports they need. And then finally, you have a next group of questions about your group, so some demographic questions. We'll go over these in detail right now as well. So the first section, which is about weather, it's going to give you a definition as to what climate change adaptation refers to, and some examples that individuals are doing to adapt to the changing weather. You have 5 questions. The first one is the hotter, wilder weather impacting you? If so, how? What changes have you made in your day-to-day life to adapt to the changing climate? And again, this is when you can use a top piece, because there are some examples of the different types of changes that people can make or have made, such as like installing or frequently using air conditioning units. You can use these examples to kind of help start your conversations. Question 3 is, are there any barriers or challenges that you have faced to adapt to the changing climate? And the final 2 questions are about resources and supports. So the first question asks, what resources or supports have you accessed to assist you in overcoming barriers or challenges? And then what additional resources and supports would assist you in overcoming these barriers and challenges to adapt to the changing climate? The second set of questions, which is on emissions, follows the same format as we just previously went through. It's on emissions, or you can see that it's referred to as climate mitigation. The top part gives you an explanation of what climate mitigation is and some examples of what individual action can include. The questions are, what changes have you been making in your day-to-day life in order to reduce your GHG emissions? And then again, you can use these examples at the top. So if anyone in your group has been making changes, it could be something like reducing waste or replacing gas furnaces and boilers with electric heat pumps if they have the capabilities to do that. Are there any barriers or challenges you have faced to reducing your GHG emissions? What resources and or supports have you accessed to help you overcome barriers or challenges to reducing your emissions? And again, what additional resources or supports would assist you in overcoming barriers or challenges to reducing your emissions? The last set of questions is for you to tell us about your group. So how do the people in your group know each other? What is the name of your group or organization? If it's not a formal group or formal like organization, you can type in NA or just explain that. How many people participated in your group discussion? And if you have any other notes about your group that you'd like to share back with the city, you can jot them down as well. So once you've completed your group discussion, these are the steps on how to submit them to the City of Toronto. So you'll see on the screen, these 3 screen grabs are from the website itself. So you're going to head to the TransformTO website and you're going to do it by scanning the QR code, which is on your discussion guide, or by searching up the website. And you're going to click on complete a survey. It's going to redirect you to the survey page, asking you if you're completing the survey as an individual or on behalf of a group. It's important that you select the second choice, which is I am completing the survey to report on the results of a group discussion, and then you're going to hit next. Then it's going to redirect you to the group discussion questions. You can answer these by using the notes that you took during your group discussion, and these questions match the group discussion guide. So you're just filling them in from the notes that you've taken. If you require any accessibility assistance as you're uploading the feedback, you can contact Steve Fisher at the number posted here. This information is also on the survey website. And I'm going to pass it to Nicole for the question period.
And just to add on to Stephanie's explanation there, it's not necessary to go through every single question and go through everything. They're there really to prompt, and you take it where you want to take it. The most important thing you're doing is having the conversation. And we know that some people are going to want to talk about the weather part of it, and everybody is qualified to talk about the weather. So they'll say, yeah, it is hotter. Yeah, it is more rain. Yeah, it is this. And you say, have you been changing your life because of that? Like, do you do things differently? My parents, they go walking in the mall, for example. Where places are air conditioned that otherwise maybe people wouldn't get air conditioning. And then about the emission reductions, again, cater the discussion to your group. The city is really interested in understanding if people have already been doing things, and if they haven't, what would they want to be doing? And here, Safia, where you said earlier, I think it was you that said, like, look, we don't have organics in our building. And if we had organics, then that would be good. That would be exactly the kind of conversation we would have. So I just don't want you to feel overly burdened by hosting your own group discussion and having to do every single thing that's there. Use it as a guide. It's really a guide. If you don't answer all the questions, it does not matter. What matters is you have a good conversation. So with that, I saw Brian jumped in while we were mid-go. You may have questions for the city, for our team on how to help facilitate. I think we'll go to 1:15 because we were a little later getting started, but we'll do a hard stop then just because everybody has, things to do. So Safia, jump in. Over to you.
So thank you so much. My first question is that I couldn't understand about this consultation. I got email and I registered because I am interested and I am doing these workshops already. What is the outcome and how we can do that one? Is there any specific funding for this one? Because nowadays, the inflation and how everything is so expensive. Now the participants always demand for the honorariums. So please let me know about it because they don't want to do any volunteer anymore.
I'm going to start, and then Andrew, I'll turn it over to you. We've heard this before, and Andrew can speak to it, but what I want to emphasize is that this is the consultation to inform the action plan. And the action plan for the next 5 years may say something like, if you want people in the community to be involved, you need to have honoraria. You need to think about how to resource them. Because so that's the difference between sort of getting feedback for this one thing versus what happens over the next 5 years. So that's one of the points that's come up. But Andrew, do you want to speak to how the city thinks about honoraria?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you said, Nicole. I think it's a little bit more difficult with the citywide consultation process to sort of like budget for honoraria and figure out what that might be, right? Because you could be having almost like unlimited discussions with unlimited participants, and that would be probably quite difficult to manage. But I think in an ongoing like engagement sense, like, you know, so the consultation process does not mean the end of engagement on climate. Really, this is just getting a snapshot over the next couple of months of like sort of where people are at, what they're experiencing, what they are doing or would like to do, to inform the action plan. But the engagement will continue, and it's a little bit easier to manage an honoraria process through like a smaller like direct engagement process than a citywide consultation process. So I don't like at the moment have any type of budget for that, but like Nicole said, that's something we could request. We could build into the plan if that's what we hear from people, that it's hard to get people engaged because we're not providing the right supports to get people engaged. So certainly happy to hear that feedback. Like Nicole said, we have heard it before, and we can bring that you know, back to the city to see what we could do through our outreach and engagement unit, which does the ongoing engagement on climate, you know, on a 12-month basis every year.
So Safia,
I-
Andrew, the answer is no, there is no honoraria for this, but there could be, the advice that you give the city is there needs to be in the future.
Correct.
And what about when we have to start this? And what about if any group got the climate action um, funding? So can we do this consultation through that to add in it or no?
Yeah,
Andrew,
so
do you
was
want to
that
jump
the
in?
like the neighborhood climate action grants? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I believe that will depend on a grant application, right, and what's in it. But if someone applied through that program to do engagement and was accepted, then certainly that would be I think a suitable use of those resources. That would sort of be up to the application, or if you have already received a grant and it was part of your application, I don't see any reason why that couldn't be used. It would really just be whatever's in the detail of your application and approval.
So at that time we didn't know about this consultation, and what will be your procedure? Just like we are very few people here right now, so you will send us the questions or whatever you display over here. You will send it to us, and then we will do the consultation in the community, and it will be totally volunteer. And how many hours or how many workshops or meetings we have to do?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in and I'll see if Nicole has anything to add to this. But like from my perspective, it could be whatever sort of works for you, which is sort of what Stephanie was mentioning in her slides, right? Like it could be a small group of 3 or 4 people. It could be a whole building or a whole community. It's really whatever you sort of have in mind. All of the materials are downloadable from the website, but we can also send them to you. So there's a discussion guide that Stephanie was sharing. So it is all voluntary in this process, right? It's really just who wants to come out to discuss this? Is this of interest to people? And again, yeah, I guess that'll depend, right, on your community or your neighborhood or who you think of inviting. So it could be anything from a few people to dozens or even hundreds, I guess. Really, it's whatever you're kind of interested in doing, but it is all voluntary.
Yeah, and
And I think
just like
we'll
my
email you. We'll email you everything, Safia. Sorry.
yeah, sorry for that, that you will email us. My group is
Yes.
totally non-profit, grassroots leaders group. We don't have any fundings or something to download or print. All things we have to do by our own. So it will be best that you can mail us the material.
Yeah,
Good.
we
How
can do
many
that.
copies you think?
Yeah, no, for the only first for the leader. You have to send us the questions and whatever we have to, how we will do, just like the you introduced that the consultation will be just like this. So
Okay.
yeah, so we will do that one. But how many times consultation? Only one time with 2 to 3 people. That's it.
It's
Yep.
really up to you. It's totally up to you. We will email you, but we will also send you a copy of everything, a hard copy. So after this meeting, we'll be in touch. Stephanie will send you an email and find out where to deliver it to.
Yeah.
And your effort could be, Safia, as low as we'll put a poster in there. The lowest effort could be sticking one poster in the community center, and that's it. You're done. But if you want to, you could say, no, I want to put 2 or 3 people together and talk to them. Or you can say you want to ask a group that's meeting if they want to provide their feedback, or it could just be encouraging people to fill out the survey on their own. I mean, it's really whatever works for you. We know people don't have resources to do it, and everybody is volunteering. So you decide. There's no requirement. You really decide what works best for you.
Okay, thank you so much. Please send me all the information.
Good. Yes, we will
Great.
email. And Stephanie, you good to follow up with Safia?
Yep, I have
Yeah,
staff
awesome. And we'll give everybody, Ashley, we'll make sure we get everybody on the call before we're done, just to let us know if a hard copy of the materials also would make sense for you, and we can happily get those out. Brian, nice to see you.
Hi. As it happens, my group here in Etobicoke hosted its own event a few weeks ago.
Okay.
On a part of this, it was called Complete and Walkable Community. So how suburbs like where we live can encourage people to move around without driving, and what would neighborhoods need for that to happen. So we're writing up a report. Is that something that we should send to you? Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely, Brian. You can please submit that to the Transform email if you'd like, or we can get you other contact information as well. But yeah, we'd be happy to take a look at that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
That would be excellent. Aziza. Aziza, you might be muted. Aziza, I see your hand up. I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry.
There we go.
Yes, so I think I have.
There you go.
Internet connection issue. Okay, so I think my question is related to what Brian asked about the how do we communicate with you, like the consultation that we have, or how many people, because I believe you should have an indicator of like how many people are read, right, or consulted. So
Yes.
because as per what you're saying, so these consultation could be in sort of like informal groups meetings. So I don't know how to record. I mean, how to register those. Like, should we send you like name of the how many people are consulted, or maybe we talked with or discussed with them, or name of them. So what are the criteria for this one? Because like I know like whatever we do, we should report like and it's good for you as well, like how many people are consulted throughout this consultation phase. So yeah.
Yeah, it's really up to you. We don't need people's individual names.
Okay.
But if you say, look, I talked to 3 people and here's when we discussed it, this is how these are the points that were raised as a group.
Okay, and okay, so sorry, there is a follow-up. So I don't know, like maybe there might be people that they have questions, concerns, comments on this. So do we have to send as well, or what will be the way of like maybe communicating those people's concern or suggestions? Sometimes they may have, yeah.
Well, you can do 2 things. You can take notes and take
Yeah.
photos and email us, or you can go onto the survey the way Stephanie was showing through the slides and say for the group discussion questions, you can just say, this is what our group talked about.
Mhm.
You know, whether it answers the question or not. And our group, you know, had difficulty talking about it because we had questions about this and that, or we have questions and we would like the city to get back to us about this and that, like whatever that may be. And we will be going through every single one of those. And if you say, or you can just email, you have Stephanie's email, you can email Stephanie directly or email the city directly. And we can do it that way. But the way it's set up is that you would go to the website and then just fill in what it is that people in your group told you, and then you'll tell us how many people were in the group. And you know, if you know each other because it's through the nonprofit that you have, then you could say that, or you can just say, look, it's a group in my community or whatever.
And just to add to that, we talked a little bit about the info sheet, but we didn't show it on the screen. But
Yeah.
so if you review that, and that's a separate piece. It's on the website. It's a 4-pager. That might answer some questions in advance. I would definitely encourage whoever's hosting a discussion to review the info sheet in detail. But you might also want to send it out to participants, because so then they could come informed, right? They've read it and it might create new questions for them, but it might also answer some of the questions that they might have. So that's a useful resource for the discussion. It's on the website. It's separate from the discussion guide, so they're 2 different documents. And then I just wanted to reiterate what Nicole said about personal information. It's our preference not to have names or emails because it creates privacy issues for us in storing all that information. So it would be better if you just kind of indicate in your submission the number of people, and just like give it a nickname almost, like, or a date, you know, like November 20th discussion with neighbors or something like that, because it's a bit easier for us not to have to deal with a lot of personal information, which creates different like rules for us.
Safi, I see your
website.
hand. Can you see the website right now? You guys? Good. So that's just typing in the URL, and then here you can see complete a survey, and there's an info sheet, and if you click on it, can you see that?
Yes.
Yep.
Good. So this is just a 4-pager. And if you're interested in us sending a hard copy to you, just let us know. So this is a really easy thing that just says our climate is changing, the crisis is more urgent, here are the ways to participate. And there's some information on how is wetter and wilder weather impacting Toronto, and what are greenhouse gases. And then we've got the most important 3 things you can do, the same things that Andrew said in his presentation, and then a screenshot of if people are driving versus biking, how different the emissions look, and then encouraging people to go to the survey. So you can always we will send this as an attachment following this meeting, but you can also just click to the website and say to people, hey, if you're coming to the meeting, take a look. And the online survey, obviously, as Stephanie said, and then the discussion guide, host your own discussion using the group discussion guide. This is the same thing that Stephanie took you through, tips on how to hold the group discussion, the QR code, and the questions. So it's all there. I know some of you had a chance to look, but some of you maybe haven't. Safia. I see your hand up and you're muted.
Sorry, I was muted. Is there any deadline?
January 31st.
Okay, before that, we have to finish this consultation.
Yeah, if you want to. You don't have to if you want to.
Okay,
No obligation.
okay. Thank you. And of the flyer, you said about the flyer that we can put the flyer in the community center. So please, in the hard copy, I would like that one that we can paste over there.
We will do that.
Thank you. And all the things I need in hard copy. I will send my
Absolutely.
email, my address in the
Yes,
email.
Stephanie will email you
Mhm.
and ask you for your address.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and
Good.
in terms of the consultation, I think I wanted to just reiterate, it doesn't have to be like super formal. You don't have to go to your neighborhood school and sit people down. If you want to, great. It could just be you talking to your friends, you talking to your family members and saying like, hey, did you guys know this is happening? Here's the info sheet. Let's go through it. Let's answer some questions together. Take notes and you submit it online, or you can email it to me as well if you have difficulty submitting online, but it doesn't, and it's volunteer too. So however many you want to do, however many people you want to talk to, it's really up to you.
Okay, thank you so much. There's no problem for me because we have a group
Hmm.
and we have a WhatsApp group. And usually we on the Zoom we meet with each other. So I will do that.
Amazing.
So much.
Amazing.
Mm.
I see Brian's hand up, and then after that, I'm going to just ask Liz and Kavita if they have any questions before and I'll come back to Aziza too. Thank you. Okay, Brian.
Yeah, just quickly, are you able to send out a post or something to every branch of the library system and city community center?
They're done. They're gone. Yep, 102 posters in every library. We don't have the same system, we don't think, for the community centers. We're digging into it.
We are going to be appearing at some community centers throughout the month of November, just like, so there'll be Kim or I, just sitting there in the lobby chatting with people. And so we will distribute, we're not going to be able to hit all of them, obviously, because there's so many, but we're going to try and hit all corners of the city at some point throughout November. And then again, now that we've just extended into January, we'll have a bit more time to do some more work on this in January.
And we're going to be at the Lawrence Allen Mall. We're going to be at the Scarborough Town Center by the food court. And we'll have some of these materials on big display boards and the materials to hand out. So we're really we do a lot of that kind of thing with the TTC where we just show up and it really works. So we're going to do that in the mall. Okay, so for people who haven't had a chance, Aziza's jumping in. Can I ask Liz and Kavita first? Liz, do you have anything? Because you haven't had a chance yet.
Well, the truth is you've generally answered all my questions. Now it's up to me to decide if I want to do this. I I was under the impression, which was, my fault that I didn't understand this properly, that I didn't realize that it was to inform the action plan. I thought it was to sort of promote implementation.
Yep, it's
And
two
so
different things. Yeah.
Yeah, they are. And I'm really glad that you're going out into the malls and into other places, because, the biggest problem, I think, for climate activists is that we tend to engage with our own bubble, and it's very, very, very hard to get outside of that. And yeah, so I have to decide if I'm the right person to get outside of that, seeing as, those tend to be the people I associate with. And, the other feedback, and again, this is just top of my head. It's not really a question, but you know, I'm thinking about this whole exercise, and I would have thought that what will inform the action plan is just what is the most effective things you can do. What are the most effective things you can do, rather than what, you know, differently informed people will say, you know. So they might say, I don't know, I need an air conditioner, you know, like we should have, I mean, heat pumps for everybody would be fabulous, but I don't think it's going to happen. I'm not quite sure what they will say. I mean, when I talk to the average person, you know, they think that climate change is caused by plastics or whatever, you know, and they're just not that well informed. I don't know, I would think that the action plan is just, you know, what is it possible for us to do? What is going to reduce emissions by the greatest amount? What is possible within our budget? You know, like why is this being done, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Is it really more consultation, or is it more education?
I can jump in on that just quickly, because really good points, Liz. And I think that that's the type of feedback that would be helpful. I mean, that's probably not new feedback, right? Like, we certainly know that we need more education and awareness raising, right? And when you talk to people about this, they need to understand what the problem is and how to solve it, right? So I think that's really good feedback. That's probably something that should be in the plan, right? Like, much more education and awareness raising, right? So that's that third red box of those 3 boxes we showed. But when we're talking to people, we're also informing them. And then to your other question or point, you're absolutely right. We're doing a technical modeling process that's going to tell us the technical ways to get to zero and the most affordable or cost-effective ways to get there. And what we want to do then, but of course, that's just modeling, though, right? That's done on a computer. It's not like real people stuff, right? So we want to then sort of overlay that with talking to people. Like, when the model tells us to do an action, can people do that action? What are they facing? What are the problems with them trying to get a heat pump or get an EV or leave their car at home or ride their bike? What are they facing, and how do we actually, you know, put more of like a human face on these technical actions that we know need to happen? So it's so to answer your question, it's both.
Why wouldn't you just say that and say, you know, we know that the most effective thing you can do is get a heat pump. What are the barriers? You know, now what do we do? Because I have a feeling that the average person is not going to come up with that on their own as the number one thing.
Right.
That's
okay.
Yeah, and we've tried to do that so the discussion guide says that. It says the most important thing you can do is reduce your energy use at home by getting a heat pump.
Okay.
But the question is to people, first of all, doesn't matter in part how much Toronto reduces its emissions, because we're going to have to adapt in any case. So it's getting people to start to think about the weather and how it may be impacting them and what changes they might be making, or they might need the city to think about making in order to help them more. But on the emissions part, asking people like what changes, if any, they've been making and what barriers or challenges they have faced is exactly that. So the thing is, for that question to be relevant to all of Toronto, there are some things that are only relevant to people who own buildings. There are some questions. The transportation one is only relevant is relevant to all, but not people like, so it's also about mode shift. So I would say it's been a real collaborative exercise between the city, the climate advisory group, and our team to try and find a path to consult in a way that increases education, but also gets the city the information they could use to influence part of the action plan that should be customized to addressing the barriers that people identify, while still making this relevant to all. So you couldn't have put your finger like more directly on exactly the spot, like where we agree that what you've described, it's exactly the priority. So maybe it's not perfect, but you're right. Everything you're saying is right. Okay, So I want to check with Kavita and then Aziza, and then we're going to wrap up.
Okay, so quickly, I know we're almost the end. So just thank you so much for sharing all the links and everything. I'll just go through that. So just wanted to let you know, because I joined this community here in St. Lawrence, you know, on Tuesdays, because you have a program there. I could speak to them, but I think I'll have to take hard copies, right? Because I wouldn't remember things at the top of my head. That's about it.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I'll
Good.
go through that.
Stephanie, let's email everybody after this. And then we'll just say, we won't share all your emails with each other because we know not necessarily everybody wants a reply all. But we'll send you all an email and just say, here's the discussion guide. Here's the info sheet. Here's the presentation. And give me your address and tell me what materials would be helpful to you. And then we can send them out and we'll get that done over the next week. And then we can print stuff in our office. We can get it out, no problem. If we need to do a major print run, we can. Aziza, last but not least, sorry, I just wanted to go to those two because I'd like to hear everybody's voice in meetings like this.
Yeah, hi, I put my question in the chat. That's what I just accessed the website and I saw the English version only. So just my question is, do we have in other languages? I think that would be easier to distribute or to communicate, even for them, like if we send the link and then anybody at their own time, they can review and fill the survey. So I don't know if that's there or no.
Andrew, you want to speak to that?
We don't currently have translated materials, but I can look into that because we might be able to do that and we might be able to turn that around relatively quickly. So because there's so many languages, we didn't sort of know where to start and stop on that. But on request, if for example, Farsi, I think we could get the materials translated. I just need to confirm that. When it comes to doing stuff online, like with the website, with the survey, which is on the website, I believe that Google will translate it for you, but we'll also look into that to make sure that that's you know, like a usable option, right? We don't want to be asking people to do that if it doesn't actually work properly. So let us follow up on both of those. I'm pretty sure we could get some translated materials to people on request, and I'm hopeful that the survey online I'm pretty sure it will, you can do it in different languages, but Kim and I can look into that and get back to everyone.
All right. This is exactly the kind of conversation we wanted to have. Do not hesitate for 1 second to email us. Stephanie will be emailing you in the next day with the stuff we talked about. And then we'll get material packages out to you and you can let us know that way. Also, the website is live. We'll make sure we include all the links in the email too, in case you want to just link through. You'll have a little package ready to go if you want to use it. And if you choose not to use it, that's okay too. You might just say, look, I chose not to use it because without honoraria, I don't feel good about bringing people together. I didn't use it because I'm a volunteer and I didn't have enough time about it, or because I just met my group about it 2 weeks ago, so we're not reconvening about it. So even the feedback about how you choose to, what you choose to do and how you choose to do it and why or why not, that will all be helpful to this process and to future city consultations. All right, Andrew, you got anything else? Are we wrapping up? Stephanie, Kim, you good?
Yeah, nothing else except just to say thank you to everyone. Like, really appreciate your time. I know you're all busy, and really appreciate you joining us today, learn more about this. And we're really hopeful, yeah, that you're able to have some discussions, because we're quite interested, you know, to get that feedback, right? It'll be really valuable for the development of the plan. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.